Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you as ever for stopping by. Look at this. Goodbye, hope and change. Hello, God help us all. This is from SV Date. And it kind of feels like that at times, doesn't it? We've lost all hope and we're just trying to look after what we can get. Macro thoughts, US 2-year yields, they've gone much higher as the market prices in Fed rate increases, but obviously people are in two minds at the moment as to how much higher these US rates proceed from here. Margaret Thatcher famously said you cannot buck the markets, and what I know is that you cannot buck the $5.1 trillion a day FX market. Certainly can't be bucked. You can buck it for a while, but then eventually it all ends in tears. Goldman Sachs and HSBC are sticking to predictions that the pound will fall to 120. However, I disagree with them and expect the pound to move up towards 136. I accept the political situation remains uncertain, and I expect Gorbachev to be the next Prime Minister within 12 months, frankly, but I think higher interest rates will support the pound. Home thoughts. A meteor streak and the arc of the Milky Way hang over the mountain fortress of Alamut, which is in the central Alborz mountains of Iran. Alamut Castle was built into the rock during the 9th century. I was reading about Thesiger, who actually got to Alamut and wrote about it. The southern Milky Way seen from Sibeloy National Park in Kenya. These photographs are by Babak Tafreshi, Nat Geo. The southern Milky Way, the large Magellanic Cloud and the Carina Nebula, red cloud at the horizon, are seen from Sibeloy National Park. And saying the long trip to remote Lake Turkana in northern Kenya is an opportunity to see a cradle of humankind. I haven't been up there and I really want to go, where fossils of our ancestors of as much as 3.5 million years old have been found. I found myself reading some Omar Khayyám, who I haven't read for a long time. There was a water drop, it joined the sea. A speck of dust, it was fused with earth. What of your entering and leaving this world? A fly appeared, disappeared. Don't pursue happiness. Life is as short as a sigh. The dust of people that were once famous turn with the reddish clay on the wheel you are looking at. The universe is a fata morgana. Life is a dream. I disapprove of the vain and the religious. Who can affirm whether you will go to heaven or hell? Besides, what do those words mean? Do you know any traveller who has been there? These were some tremendous photographs that S. Karami Shale tweeted from the Meru National Park, another place I haven't visited that I'd like to. Look at this, the rhinos, 4 rhinos, extraordinary. Elephant herd. The feeling of motion that you see in the photograph, really tremendous photographs, and definitely want to get up there. Of course, that's where the Adamsons used to hang out there and near Samburu. I know about perspective, but this Great Plains Cons photo shows how big a male lion really is, and indeed they are. Finally, a guaranteed table at London's hottest restaurant. Hoppers has been jammed from the day it opened 2 years ago, serving a rare find in central London, Sri Lankan cuisine. Diners would wait for up to 3 hours for a table. The menu will feature new dishes including Jaffna beef rib fry, tuna and tapioca cutlets, alongside the curries and other classics from Soho. Sethi estimates that 35 to 40% of the menu will be new, and that the drinks list will be considerably expanded. There will be 2 bars. Sri Lankan food, there used to be a restaurant, Putney, I can't remember its name. I was there for a number of years and I used to go there. A mother and son, both Sri Lankans. China and US military budgets. This is via Holger. It's very interesting that, the current geopolitical situation. Suddenly Trump's light has flicked on and has become more aggressive. He's been doing a couple of FONOPs, amongst other things. But I really think that the militarization of the islands is a fait accompli, and if you don't now reverse it, it's never going to be reversed. And to reverse it would require, a military intervention. And I don't think either side's that keen on it, seems to me. Mikhail Gorbachev, it looks as if all the world is preparing for war. Now the US tracked a North Korean missile for 37 minutes today. And that took me to Gravity's Rainbow Thomas Pynchon. But it is a curve each of them feels unmistakably. It is the parabola. They must have guessed once or twice, guessed and refused to believe. But everything always collectively had been moving toward that purified shape, latent in the sky, that shape of no surprise, no second chance, no return. Yet they do move forever under it, reserved for its own black and white bad news, certainly, as if it were the rainbow and they its children. North Korea says the missile fired today was an intercontinental ballistic missile point. North Korean ballistic missile greatly exceeded altitude of 2,500 kilometers, Japan's defense ministry. It seems they've taken it to another level. North Korea has fired another ballistic missile into the Sea of Japan. It is the 13th so far in 2017. FD have done some stats. Trump responds to latest North Korea missile test. Does this guy have anything better to do with his life? I wrote a piece in November 2010 called The Hermit Kingdom. And I was saying far away in distant lands lies the Hermit Kingdom. This land is ruled by the House of Kim, and its capital is Pyongyang. The first and eternal president was Kim Il-sung, and his successor Kim Jong-il, whose designated successor is Kim Jong-un. They have all had tiny little hands like the elves and the shoemaker. And this country has nuclear weapons, and on its border with its neighbor, South Korea, sit 25,000 American soldiers. Last week, the North shelled the South and issued all kinds of threats. The DPRK will deal a merciless military counterattack at any provocative act of intruding into its territorial waters in the future. This was then, in 2010, President Obama sent the USS George Washington to the Yellow Sea. Now, here we sit watching developments and trying to model what is happening and what might happen. In reality, we're actually navigating in uncharted waters. The media, and I think this is the important piece that that I want to emphasize. The media keeps chanting like a mantra, China will rein North Korea in. It is not in their interest to have a mad dog like North Korea as an ally, whether it's the BBC, the New York Times, or Radio France. I said, I venture this is an embedded narrative fallacy and that most Western commentators are apparently popping quaaludes. Let me tell you why. China is taking a much more forward position in that area. And particularly in Asia, it's near abroad. I believe North Korea is the perfect instrument, the attack dog, for China to show those who choose to operate outside their sphere of influence, and by extension, in the US, is that there will be a very heavy price to pay. I venture that the Chinese are quite happy to see those 25,000 US soldiers plus their THAAD missile defense system run right into the sea. And I said we need to grow up. And I think that point remains valid and applies now. President Trump, I wrote over the weekend, resides in the White House, from where Zeus-like he hurls Twitter thunderbolts. And Zeus was actually quite contrary, wasn't he? And I think Trump might be a Zeus figure. I like this photograph of Emmanuel Macron. He does great photography. He's promised a profound transformation of France and Europe, and who am I to doubt him? Calling for an end to defeatism and cynicism in a rare address to both houses of Parliament at the Gilded Palace of Versailles. and it is a gilded palace. President Macron, as I wrote over the weekend, announced his arrival on the world stage by handshake wrestling Trump to a standstill, has given Europe its mojo back. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 113.70, dollar index 96.20, Japanese yen getting a little bit firmer, 112.88. It's interesting that the yen's gaining on this uncertainty, but gold is not moving. Swiss franc 0.9642, the pound 129.55. The Australian dollar had quite a day. When I walked in, it was at about 0.7677, dropped nearly to 0.76. We're now at 0.7613. Central bank did not turn hawkish as some people expected. India rupee 64.885, very stable as you like. Inflation falling. South Korean won 11.51.36. That softened up. Look at that, because that was very steady forever around the 11.20, 11.30 level. We're now at 11.51.36. Brazilian real 3.30.23. Egyptian pound back below 18 at 17.946. Anything above 18, I think, is a good risk-adjusted buy of the pound. The rand's been softening up of late, 13.2274. Dollar index, I'll put up a longer-term chart. So much pivots on the Donald and what he's going to say next. Against a basket of 6 major currencies, it was steady after rising 0.6% overnight, stronger than expected rise in the June Institute of Supply Management. Euro dollar, let's have a look at that, 113.70 area, 114.50 is strong resistance. Have a look at this chart I'm going to put up there. To get a feel for what we've spiked through it a couple of times, but you look at it, you can see it's sort of capped the euro, but I think we're in a fundamental trend change. Macron flicked a switch. The stimulus is now really feeding through. I think Europe is going to continue to be a stronger story. Apple, Google, and other NASDAQ stocks swung wildly in after-hours trading. Trading screens around the world showed the likes of Amazon, Microsoft shares appearing to fall by more than 50%, with Apple stocks one stage looking as if it had risen 348%. Who knows, that might be a premonition. On this Italian beach, the end of the world is always near. It's from Vogue magazine. Gold, 1226. Brent crude futures down about 0.6%. WTI down about 0.5%. But remember, they've had an 8-day rally. It's, in my opinion, been all about short covering. I'll put up a WTI chart. I still think we're going back to 32. We're at 46. We're at 47 dollars on WTI. Cocoa futures, take a look at this. This hasn't been too good, has it? But it seems there's a lot of flooding in the cocoa growing areas, so let's keep an eye on that. Everyone protests without difference because the hunger of the stomach and the hunger for democracy have been united, said Carlos Julio Rojas, a Le Candelabra activist. This is in Venezuela, and talking about the battle for the street that we're seeing going on. You remember that quote that I like, which I think applies to the entire world today. Paul Virilio, the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, machine of attack. In other words, a producer of speed. And I was talking about Africa, saying the street is a tinderbox and it has become a major area of political contestation, but I think might as well just apply to Caracas as well. Angolan leader back in Spain a month after medical trip. That's not a good sign. President Jose Eduardo dos Santos returned to Barcelona on Monday on a private visit, the government said. A month after the 74-year-old leader spent several weeks in the Spanish city receiving medical treatment. At the time, private media reported that dos Santos, Angola's leader of the last 38 years, had suffered a stroke, although his government has declined to comment on his condition. It did not say when he was scheduled to return from his latest trip. Several private media outlets said in May he was seriously ill. The government only confirmed the medical nature of his trip after sustained demands for information from the opposition UNITA party. Angola, nation of 23 million people, is due to hold a general election on August 23 that is likely to see Dos Santos replace the state president by Defense Minister Raul Lourenço. You know, the prices of oil have remained substantially lower than these guys expected. They borrowed, binged in the short term at the beginning. This is a moment of transition. It is, in fact, an incredibly perilous moment in Angola, in my view. Hunger, a weapon of war for South Sudan's fighters, Amnesty says. It's just appalling, South Sudan. It's so disappointing. It should all be fired. It is a cruel tragedy of this war that South Sudan's breadbasket, a region that a year ago could feed millions, has turned into treacherous killing fields that have forced close to 1 million to flee in search of safety. President Mugabe auctioned cattle worth $1 million for the African Union to help end donor dependency syndrome. The African Union, of course, is meeting at the moment, and ISS Africa says institutional reform, self-financing and security threats were the key issues. In 2003, just 2,000 Africans studied at Chinese universities. In 2015, 50,000 did. This is John Ashbourne. I like this from Libération Video d'Otage d'Al-Qaeda. It remains a clear and present danger. South African taxpayers are right to be furious. Their money has ended up paying for an extravagant Gupta wedding. This is from Alec Hogg. South African all shares up 2.98% this year. Dollar versus rand. The ZAR is beginning to roll over. It feels time to get short again, but with very wide stops because it has a habit of bouncing when you least expect it. Egyptian pound 17.946. In the upcoming CTC-WP report, we find that more than 72% of Boko Haram suicide bombers are women, the highest percentage of terror use of women ever. The point that's not being made in there is that they're children, and that's even worse. Nigerian all share up 21.94% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange up 16.3% this year. Tanzanian government has submitted 3 bills to Parliament on Thursday that would allow it to force mining and energy companies to renegotiate their contracts. That's not going to go down well. Mining contributed 1.1% to Kenya's total GDP in 2016 compared with 1% in 2012. But I think this is an opportunity for Kenya, actually, as there's uncertainty in Tanzania, uncertainty in South Africa, in the mining sector. I said over the weekend the real economy needs a transparent election process, a first round result, and a gracious loser. And I was talking about how the intrusion of the political economy into the real economy is a very expensive thing. Abraj, of course, as I said yesterday, has acquired Java House Group, and Martina, the Wall Street Journal, is calling it a landmark deal. Rumors are between $100 and $130 million. Abraj bought the chain from private equity group ECP, talking about growing Java House in multiple avenues. There are themes that can be introduced on the Java platform and geographic expansion further into Uganda and Rwanda, plus other East African countries. Java would interest international franchise owners looking for a reliable partner in sub-Saharan Africa. Employs 2,000 people, but saying that concerns still linger about the Kenyan economy. Kenyan market being rattled in recent weeks, financial trouble hitting the biggest retail chain in East Africa, Nakumatt. Further doubt on the true potential of businesses targeting middle-class consumers. It's safe to say we have a perfect storm happening in Kenya with elections, a credit crunch, Nakumatt, Mr. Patel said. Kenyans, according to our friends at Abraj, Kenyans spend up to 40% of their income on eating out. That's incredible. Nairobi all shares up 14.47% this year, but has corrected 1.888% since the 27th of June. Safaricom solidly underpinned, up 20.1% year to date, heading to 28 in my opinion. NSE 20 up 12.47% this year, down 1.115% since the 23rd of June. I won't be able to do a podcast tomorrow because I'm attending this conference that Moody's is hosting at the Kapinski. Looking forward to that. And I'm actually speaking at that and just finishing off those presentations. Once again, thank you for stopping by.